Going over this new tropical system that we have in the Atlantic Ocean. So let's go ahead and get into it. We have a new tropical system that is actually heading towards the U.S., but it might be able to turn north. But this has a 40% chance of development in the next 7 days. But it most likely will form in this area into here. Might be able to develop somewhat back here, but I think it will most likely be in that area. So with that, the National Hurricane Center does expect it to develop over the next several days. So let's take a look at some of the models. This is the GFS model, and we are going to start this uh, around July 31st, around 8 p.m. So here is our tropical wave right here. And right now it's just a green blob, but we will keep this moving and see if this can try to develop, but it does take this over Cuba, and then it does eventually get into the Gulf and tries to get its act together, but it is not able to before it makes a technical landfall. So let's zoom into this. Sorry about that. Alright, so let's zoom into this. So here it is. That would be about to make landfall as 1005 millibar low pressure. So most likely a tropical depression, but it could be a weak tropical storm. And then it does eventually start to die out as it moves over land. So let's take a look at the European model. This is going to be starting around July 29th. And here's our tropical wave down here. And once we get into the 31st, it has this, once again, about lined up with the GFS. But this is actually taking it a little further north and takes it over the Bahamas, and then does eventually pop off a low pressure, and then makes a technical landfall in North Carolina. So this actually has changed a lot. Just a few runs ago, it had a major hurricane going way out to sea, but it doesn't really have this forming on this model run. So let's take a look at the Canadian model, and here it is. This is starting July 28th. We will keep this moving. It's hard to see it, but our tropical wave is right there. So let's keep this moving, and it does take it over portions of Cuba, and then does eventually get a low pressure started, and could make it to hurricane status. Let's zoom into that, and yeah, it could make it to a low-end hurricane, 990 millibar low pressure, and then that would make a landfall in Florida. And then that goes north and heads on out of here. And then last, let's take a look at the icon. Start this around July 28th. And yeah, it's really hard to see this tropical wave, but there it is once again, that green blob right there. So let's keep this moving, and it is taking it a little more north, but then it does tick south a little bit and moves it over Cuba, and then does eventually get a low pressure to form, and then it gets into the Gulf of Mexico and starts to form a little more, but the icon model does not go out very far, but it is currently running, and we do have the new run, so let's take a look at that. So here it is, starting off July 28th, and there's that tropical wave, and it does take it over Cuba, but this model run does not go out far enough. Let's take a look at the Pacific Ocean as well. We have 3 systems, but this is the main one. It has a 70% chance of development in the next 7 days. And then we have one right behind it with a 30% chance of development in the next 7 days. And then one over to the west with a 30% chance of development in the next 7 days. And what I mean by development is form into a tropical depression or tropical storm. So we do have those systems, but they are not expected to do much. Let's take a look at the current radar. We have a large area of showers and storms in portions of Alabama and Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky as well. And some of these storms have been able to get above severe limits and get severe thunderstorm warned. And then let's take a look over here. We have another area of storms which have been able to spark some severe thunderstorm warnings in the Dakotas and in portions of Wyoming. And then we have another area of showers and storms down here in portions of New Mexico and Arizona, which have also been able to get above severe limits. So not too much going on, but we do have some more local areas of some active weather. Let's take a look at our day 1 severe weather risk. We have a slight risk of severe weather in portions of Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota. And we actually have a 2% tornado risk inside of that. That does include Omaha, Nebraska, and Des Moines, Iowa. And then we have a 15% wind risk and a 15% hail risk. But we actually have a significant threat of wind in that 15% risk area. So we will have to watch for winds exceeding 75 miles an hour, which is significant and can definitely do some damage. Let's take a look at our day 2 severe weather risk. We have 2 areas to watch, but this main one's going to be in North and South Dakota with a slight risk, and we have another marginal risk in portions of Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. And this actually has a 2% tornado risk that does include Chicago. And then we have a 5% wind risk in that, and then a 5% hail risk. But then up to the slight risk, we have a less than 2% tornado risk, but we still cannot rule out a tornado. And then we have actually a 15% wind risk, and then a 15% significant hail risk, so we will have to watch for hail in 2 inches in diameter or larger. And then we have a day 3 marginal risk. This extends all the way from the U.S.-Canadian border all the way down to portions of Tennessee, and as of now, this is just a 5% risk of severe weather at this time. We also have a mesoscale discussion in portions of South Dakota. This has a 40% chance of a severe thunderstorm watch being issued. And then we have another mesoscale discussion in portions of Iowa with a 40% chance of being issued for a severe thunderstorm watch. Excuse me. So one more look at this tropical system in the Atlantic. By tomorrow, I think this track will be more so like this. But we will have to watch because it could actually go more north, or it could go more south and possibly be able to get into the Gulf and could make its way anywhere towards Alabama or Mississippi, so we will just have to watch out for that. But as of now, it could go either way. So it could not go in the Gulf, it could go in the Gulf. So we will just have to watch this very closely. So with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.